Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. Today, we're going to build the ultimate DIY NAS. Not only are we going to build the ultimate DIY NAS on the cheap, we're going to do it with Windows, and only with Windows software. Well, that's not entirely true. It's going to be a Windows-based NAS because I want to show you the potential windows you may not be aware of. You know, you've got this operating system sitting there that everybody is pretty much running on their desktop PCs. Most of us aren't well versed in Linux, and most of you out there that watch this channel are not well versed in Linux and other operating systems, but you are familiar with Windows 11. You may have a copy of that or Windows 10 laying around. So the idea is to, how cheaply can we build a NAS that's useful, powerful, effective, in fact, more powerful than something we could get from Synology or one of the other manufacturers, and how we can pick and choose the components that go into it or components we might have laying around and put them to good use. So that's the idea behind this series of videos, because what we're going to do is we're going to build the machine today. We're going to take care of storage options for it. We're going to take care of apps, that kind of thing. And then later down the road, we'll build on this NAS and show you some other neat things it can do. So I just want you to realize, you know, the potential. You don't have to go out and buy all this fancy equipment, and you don't have to know Linux, and you don't have to do this. It helps. It helps. It can't hurt you to learn Linux, for crying out loud, or any other operating system or programming language. So I could ramble on all day, but I'd rather spend this time getting the machine made for you. So let's go do that right now. So kind of ignore my disorganization. I got a couple of servers here. So I've got this unit, which is Hephaestus. As you can see down here, I've labeled it. It still has the 3.5-inch floppy drive, but I digress. It also has four, what size are these drives? I think it has four terabyte Seagate Iron Wolf drives in here. This is my old Ryzen 5 3600, and it got upgraded to a Ryzen 5 45G, I believe, 450G, something like that, with the built-in graphics. And it also has an add-in graphics card, and it's probably less power hungry than the unit I'm about to show you here, which is Zeus. Now, Zeus is an AMD Ryzen 7 1700X, back from, oh, God only knows when. It was donated by a subscriber. And then these drives, these 8 terabyte drives, were a gift from Medicurb. He's so generous. So I've got 4 of them in here. And so the object today is to turn this into, well, a more powerful NAS. That we're going to do it with parts we have on hand, and, you know, donated parts. Some of these are the hard drives and the CPU. The motherboard I did have to buy. Power supply. It's got a good power supply in it. But so yeah, I want to see if it's feasible, if we can get the same kind of functionality we could, as opposed to using a off-the-shelf NAS, which you're going to pay, you know, an arm and a leg for. Although these days it's not too bad considering what you get. But this is going to be so much more powerful than anything we could buy from Synology, or, you know. And I have the parts on hand, and you can see this is a very forgiving and spacious case. So the video card I have in there now is the GTX 1650 OC 4 gig gigabyte card. So that's a pretty, still for me, even though it's only 4 gig of RAM, it's a better card than anything else I have available. I have a 1050 Ti here. I think that was sent to me by Medicurb. Don't worry, we're going to find a home for that. And he also sent along a GTX 1060, but we're not going to use those in this build. We're just going to keep it as is. So it's got the R7 our Ryzen 7 1700X CPU. I think it's got 16 gig of RAM. We could always take that up to 32 if we needed to. It's got those 4 8 terabyte drives, and it's got a 256 gig NVMe boot drive, so that'll work. So we've got Windows 11. I went with Pro. I would recommend you go with Pro as well if you're going to follow along with this kind of guide that I'm doing. But anyway, the first thing I want to do is get the ability to run log in via remote desktop, get an IP address hard coded for this unit, because you see it's supposed to be at 5.5, and then get Hyper-V loaded on here, because we're going to be running some virtual machines on this DIY NAS we're building. Now, just to be thorough, I thought about it. The fact that this motherboard only has a single gigabit NIC, and it's a 1 gig NIC at that. And if this is going to be a NAS, well, we need some fast networking. So I had a couple options. I could have gone with a ConnectX 3 card. However, none of the cards I have a bracket that'll fit a full height slot. And the 10 gig Ethernet card I had, that's not SFP Plus, had the wrong bracket as well. They both had the short brackets. I couldn't get them to fit in here. So I went with the trusty Mellanox ConnectX 2 card, and on top of that, that's an SFP Plus card. I've used this little adapter that Metacrib has sent me, and we're going to see how hot this thing gets, because I've been warned it'll get rather warm. It's only doing about 80 degrees right now. I would say that's not bad. We'll keep an eye on it. I've heard they can get very warm, and this one is discolored. I'm going from SFP to Cat 6 cable, and then up to my 10 gig connection here on my switch, my 16 port Unify switch that does 10 gig. And we do have a 10 gig light. It's number 15. So there you go. And that'll allow us to have some speedy transmission of data. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into control panel here, because I'm old school, right? So I'm going to go into control panel. I'm going to go to programs, and I'm going to turn Windows features on or off, and I'm going to enable Hyper-V right here and tell it OK. And I'm going to do this before I join the domain, before I hard code an IP address, although I've already done that, because this is going to screw with all that stuff. So we want to make sure we do this before we do things like RDP and whatnot. And it's just told me I need to restart it, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm a little confused. I've rebooted, and for whatever reason it didn't change my IP address, and I'm wondering if it's got a network card set up under Hyper-V. So let's just go look. Go to Hyper-V Virtual Switch Manager, and yeah, it's got a default switch set in there, and it's bound to the Mellanox ConnectX, and it's called default switch. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a new one anyway. And we'll call this GB 10-1 vert. There we go. And we're going to use that ConnectX 2 Ethernet adapter. I'm going to apply this. Yeah, it's going to change the network. Okay. Apply. Okay. Well, hello, little girl. All right, so carrying on with Zeus here. All right, so I've got all the hardware in. I've got Windows installed. I've got it activated. Went with 11 Pro. We have installed Hyper-V and verified it's working well as far as we can. And we've done all the updates. And this is on Windows 11 24H2. So the next thing to do is install or to insert all of these 8 terabyte drives that were donated and get the NAS part of this DIY NAS set up. So go ahead and power that on, and then I'll run. Yeah, I'm not going to run anywhere. I'll cautiously and optimistically walk over to my workstation, to my desk, and we'll sit down and we'll see if we can't get some drives set up on this thing so we can share some files. That's the whole reason behind a NAS, isn't it? Well, one of the reasons, as you'll see. So some things we need to keep in mind, folks, when we're doing, we're going to build this NAS. Now, I'm assuming that you don't have a DNS server set up in your house. I'm assuming you don't have an Active Directory domain set up in your house. Those are advanced topics that I've covered before. I'm going to assume you just want to share whatever it is you have on a machine, a NAS, with everybody else in your house that's running Windows. That's an assumption I make on this video. So keep that in mind when we're going through and talking about things. So I have a new or semi-new install of Windows 11 24H2 here, and we're going to go get some things set up and get ready for sharing. So one of the most important things you need to make sure you have is to know your IP address of your machine. So do you know how to get your IP address? Well, the simplest way I can show you is to right-click on your Start menu, go to Terminal Admin, type yes, and then type IP config and hit enter. And what that'll do is it'll bring up your current IP address. So you can see my IP address here is 5.5. My gateway is 5.254. And the only thing it doesn't show you here is the DNS server settings. But again, we're not going to be concerned about those right now because we're just setting up a basic DIY NAS here. And I just want you to be able to connect to it. So because we don't have a DNS server, that's important that we know that IP address of this machine. The next thing I want to show you is we want to right click on the Start menu, and we want to go to Settings, and we want to come over here to System, and then go all the way down here to About. Okay, now there is another way to do this, but I've already given this machine a name. So you can choose rename this PC, click on that, and then give your device a new name if you want to, because the name that Microsoft is going to give this machine, just it's a random generated name and number, so you'll probably want to give it your own name. You'll need to do that, and then you'll need to reboot your system. The other thing is on domain or work group, by default your work group name is going to be work group, not Unky Joe's Playhouse or UJP as I have it here. So keep that in mind when you see this. Don't let it confuse you. If you haven't done any changes on your network on this machine at home, this should say work group, and either one of these is fine. You don't really need to worry about it. But I would give this machine a name that you can clearly understand. This is a NAS. So normally I set up a unit like this, and I just put all the drives in one big pool of drives. I do what's called a RAID 0. However, there is no redundancy, and if you lose one drive in that array, you risk losing all the data. So that's not the greatest idea to run it as a NAS, to run your drives in RAID 0. What you're better off to do is run them in RAID 1, or better yet, even RAID 10, which is basically if you have more than 2 drives, it's like running 2 mirrored sets, and then you stripe those mirrored sets together, and you get not only redundancy, but you get a speed advantage because you're writing and reading from more than one drive at a time. Does that make sense? I hope so. So it took me some time for my primitive ape brain to wrap my head around that. So I'm going to set it up like I would if this were my only NAS on my network Now remember, RAID is not a backup. It just, hard drive space is relatively cheap, and you want, some redundancy on your data on your Windows machine. Now, what I have never done on Windows 11 is remove a drive from an existing striped or mirrored set of drives, because there is no way now to remove a drive once you put it into a drive pool. I don't know why that is, but that's the way it is. So what I'm going to show you is how to set up kind of a software RAID 10 where the data is mirrored onto two different drives, and then those two different mirrored drives are striped together to get the speed. So you get redundancy, plus you get probably twice the read and write speed you would if it was a single drive. Follow me? All right. So follow along as I take you here. We're going to go to settings. We're going to go to system, down here to storage, and then advanced storage settings, and then storage spaces. So what I'm going to do is click on add, and I'm going to select, I'm just going to call this storage pool. That's fine. I'm going to select all 4 of these 8 terabyte drives and go to create. Let's just set it up as a simple, no resiliency, and you'll see what kind of speeds we get when we copy it like that. So let's go ahead and create it. I'm going to do drive letter P, and I'm going to have it formatted NTFS. Go ahead and click on format. Now, sometimes you'll get this error I got down here, that it couldn't format the volume. I don't know why it does that. It's Windows. What can I say? It could be it does format the volume. It just takes it a while. But let's go back over here to File Explorer. We'll open that up. And you see the volume is not formatted. So I'll just right click on it. I'm going to go ahead and format it. NTFS, we'll call it pool 1. Okay. Start, and yes, okay. And it shouldn't take it too long to format the drive. Okay. And close. All right, so now let's bring this window over here a bit so we can see what's going on. So I'm going to go over to my Synology NAS. We're going to copy some data over here from the media folder. So we'll go grab this Action Adventure, my favorite to copy, right? Come back here to the P drive. Now pay attention over here to the speed. And I'm going to create a new folder here. Media. And then under there we'll create one called videos. And then we'll go ahead and paste that information. So you'll see that we get some pretty, I'm on a 10 gig network too, so we get some pretty phenomenal read and write speeds onto the hard drive. And that is because we have the volume striped. It's all 4 drives are involved. All 4 drives are being written to at the same time, so you have quadruple the amount of heads and platters being written to, and you get these really phenomenal speeds. And normally, if this was an archive server, this would be fine, because all I'm doing is copying an offline copy of data to these drives, and I only need them in an emergency. So this is fine, but it's not fine if you're running a NAS, because NAS is kind of mission critical. It stores all your stuff. So what I tell people is get the biggest hard drive you can afford. The cheaper, it's cheaper per gigabyte, the higher the capacity you get. You just have to save up for it for a longer time. So my recommendation to you is get the largest drives you can, because you're going to probably end up putting them at least in RAID 1 is what I would recommend. And if not, RAID 10, which gives you half the capacity of all 4 of the drives, but you get double the speed, the write and read speed. So if that's important to you, if you're doing a lot of reading and writing from hard drives, and if you're moving a lot of data, that could be important. Now, if you're not, Even RAID 5 might be fine for you. You get really slow write speeds on a software RAID 5 array, but you get pretty good read speeds. So for a NAS, that might be all you need if you're not writing data that often. But it's going to take you a long time to get the data onto that NAS using RAID 5 software RAID. But anyway, I digress. That's an advanced topic. Now I see no reason to continue the copy because, as you can see, it's peaking at about 600 megabytes per second, somewhere right around there, and the drive speed's about 400 to 500 megabytes per second. So I think you get my point. Now let's see what kind of speed impact we have if we go down to a different type of setting. The problem is that I'm used to Windows telling, we're going to go back to storage advanced and then to storage spaces. I'm used to Windows giving me a little more control over storage spaces. This new interface kind of threw me for a loop. Now I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. This is why I wasn't clear, and I'm still not really clear on how it did it, but I finally wrapped around my head around the mirror. So again, we're just going to create a storage pool with all 4 disks. And then we're going to do storage space. We're going to do a 2-way mirror, okay? So what that's going to do is it's going to create 2 mirrors, and it's going to stripe those mirrors because there's 4 drives. If there were only 2 drives, it would only do a mirror. We're going to choose a 2-way mirror, and that'll set it up very similar to how RAID 10 is set up. So I'm going to go ahead and create it, and then I'm going to give it drive letter P again. I'm going to format it as NTFS, and again, it couldn't format the drive. We'll ignore that. We'll come out here and we can manually format the drive. And format. And we'll do pool 1. Do a quick format. Still going to be 29 terabytes. Cool. And our format is complete. And we should be able to see the drive. I called it poll 1 instead of pool 1. I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of new folders. So we'll do one called media. And there we'll create one called videos. And then we should be able to paste that data over there. And now you can see clearly that our speeds are a little bit slower. And there you go. So they're about half of what they were when we created a striped or, simple, no resiliency volume. And now this one is reading and writing to 2 mirrored sets simultaneously, so we get about half the speed we were getting on the other array, but we get some redundancy this way. So we get 2 benefits. So now I see why Microsoft has dumbed down the interface under Windows 11, because they don't want you to have to think about how many drives are in the array. They're going to tell you based on their count if you've got enough drives for that array to create it, and then it's going to intelligently create what is in essence is a striped mirror, or a RAID 10. RAID 1 plus 0 or 0 plus 1, whatever you want to call it. So there you go. This is the setting I would recommend if you're going to be using this as an NAS and using the built-ins, using all the software that comes with Windows, because this is built into Windows. Now, how do you recover from a single drive failure on a storage space? I have no idea. I have looked hither and yon, and I cannot find it, because once I create these arrays, I've gone back out and tried to replace a drive in them. There is no function under Windows 11 to remove a drive from the array once it's in it that I can find. So maybe some of you a little more smarter out there than I am can find it. I think it's another feature that Windows 11 has removed. Now, keep in mind, I'm running Windows 11 24H2, so maybe they've removed that capability to remove a drive from a mirrored array. I don't know. And again, your mileage might vary. So, all right, so let's go out to the pool and let's create some folders. I'm going to create I'm going to right click and do a new folder, and we'll call this apps. And now I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, create a new folder. We'll call that media. And let's do one more folder, and we'll call it public. Okay. Now, what I need to do is put some data on here so I can show you how we share it. So I'm going to go to the media folder. Well, actually, I'm going to just come up here and or down here to network, and I'm going to let it go out and scan my network. Now, I have the benefit of having several NAS devices out on my network. So your mileage might vary. You might have an external hard drive that you want to plug in via USB and copy the data off onto your new NAS, your new Windows NAS. So let's assume you're doing that. But for me, I'm just going to go into my NAS here, and I'm going to go to the media folder and under videos, and I'm going to right click on Action Adventure, and I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to open a new tab here. I'm going to come back to my P drive, to media. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste that. Now, once that gets going, you're going to see that one of the things that I did do when I put this system together was put a 10 gig network or NIC card in here. And so you're going to be able to see the kind of speeds we're going to be able to get over my 10 gig network. It's not phenomenal by any means, but we're getting, 400 between 400 and 600 megabytes per second, or nearly what? So it's several gig per second. Just keep in mind, this is very risky to set up your drives like this. It's not something I'd recommend for something mission critical. And again, if you've got all the drives and you bought them all about the same time, you're probably going to be fine, right? So the next thing I want to do is show you how to share a folder, and it's really very simple to do that. So on the P drive, I've set up 3 different folders, and I'm going to show you how we can share them. So I'll just start with apps. If I right click on it and come down to properties, one of the options I have here is the sharing tab. Okay. Now, out of the box settings with Windows 11, you should not be able to share. So what I've done is I've come under settings, network and internet, advanced network settings, go here to advanced sharing settings. Now, depending on whether you're on a private network, a public network, or whatever, you're going to have to change this setting. Now, what you need to do is, my current profile is a public network, okay? That's what Windows 11 installs as default. So I had to go out and turn on network discovery and file and printer sharing. I turned them both on. And then under all networks, what I changed was password protected sharing I turned off. And I'm not going to go into the weeds as to why I do this, but we're just looking to get a Windows server up and running, or a Windows machine up and running as a NAS as quickly as possible and as simply as possible. I didn't mention this is not the most secure way to set this up, but if this NAS is just going to be on your local network, you should be fine. So once you've changed those 2 settings, you can close that window, and then you'll be able to come back here to whatever you want to share. I want to share this apps folder, so we're going to right click, go to properties, go to the sharing tab, and then come down here to advanced sharing. Now, right here it warns you, people without a user account and password for this computer can access folders shared with everyone. Keep that in mind. So we're going to go under advanced sharing, and we're going to click the little box that says share this folder. And we have an opportunity here to give it a different name. If you want to call it something else other than apps, for its share name, you can. And then the all-important part is, come down here to permissions. And right now, you're going to see the group or user, everyone, has read-only access. And that's fine, because applications is just a folder full of applications that I want people to be able to read and install from. So that's okay. So we're going to click on OK. We're going to apply, OK, and then we're going to close that. So now we have shared that folder. If I right-click, come back to Properties, go to Sharing, you'll see now that the apps is shared, and the path is /Zeus apps. Now, remember I told you about DNS. We don't really have a DNS server set up, so we need to remember that IP address. So instead of this being our path is going to be // 192.168.5.5 /apps. That's how we're going to connect to this share, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Now let's go over to media. Same thing with that. We want to share that. So right click on it, go to properties, go to sharing, advanced. We're going to share it. Permissions are fine. Going to go ahead and apply it, tell it okay, and close that. And then again, we'll verify that. Coming here to properties, under sharing, and we see it's shared Zeus Media. And then the same way with public, but we're going to do a little something different with public because I want people to be able to write to that folder. Everybody, right? It's where we're going to share our public stuff, right? So I'm going to go under advanced sharing, and this time, under permissions, I'm going to change this to full control. Now, this is not a great idea security-wise because everyone will have the ability to delete files, create files, whatever. If I take this off and just allow change, people will be able to write files. They won't be able to delete directories. They'll be able to create directories and files and change files, but they won't be able to delete. So you have to decide what is best for you. But for the purposes of this demonstration video, I'm going to click on full control for everybody, and then I'm going to tell it apply and okay, and then close. Now, if I want to verify that's working, I can come down here to network and then come up here and put in /192.168.5.5. So if we come back to this /192.168.5.5, you'll see there are our 3 shared folders. Now, let's see. Can we change something? Let's come to the apps folder and create a new folder. I need permission. So even as administrator on this local machine, I can't change anything when I'm in the share view. Same way with media. If I try to create a new folder, no, sorry, you can't do that. How about if I try to delete something? Let's delete that folder. Oh, are you sure you want to permanently delete this folder? Yes. You can't do that. You need permission from Zeus Adama. So, yeah. But under public, we should be able to create a new folder. If I've done my job, we'll call it test. And bing, bang, boom, we have file and folder sharing. Now let's go over to another computer. Now this is another computer, but it's a virtual machine, a virtual Windows 11 machine running on the AMD EPYC, the Super EPYC server I built. And it also has a pass-through video card. So we're combining some of the other stuff we've learned in my previous labs. And, you know, why use a real machine? Let's use a virtual one, right? What you're seeing here is other stuff out on my network that I've connected to before. However, if I come up here and go to the 192.168.5.5 under network, you'll see that I have all those network folders available to me. Apps, media, and public, and there's our test folder. So let's see what permissions I have. And Microsoft, why do you keep doing that? Okay. So let's see if I can delete the test folder. And I can. And why can't I? Because I gave the group everyone permission to do everything, right? Now I should be able to conversely create a new folder. So we'll call that new test. And there it is. All right, so let's go under apps and let's see if we can't create a new folder under there. I need permission. So I'm going to cancel. Let's go under media and let's create a new folder here. I still need permission. How about if I want to delete that action adventure folder? No, won't let me do that either. Well, that's just not nice. I want to be able to delete those folders if I want to, but because I've set the permissions the way I have, I can't. So that, in its simplest form, is how you set up file sharing on Windows 11. And then if at any time you want to come back here and change these permissions, all you have to do is come back to the shared folder and right-click on it, go to Properties, come to the Sharing tab, Advanced, go to your permissions, and you can change them. Now, the other thing you can do, but it's an advanced topic, we'll do a lab on this one day showing you how to create a soup to nuts server in your home if you want to. Windows 11, there's no reason you can't just set it up as your server for your home network. You've already paid for the license, or you've got one. You can do the same thing with Windows 10. The point is being the king of cheap, I want to do this as cheaply as possible. But at any point, I can come back here and go, okay, for apps, I want people to be able to change the apps folder. So now I've given them that permission. And then let's come back here to this virtual machine, and let's see if we can create a folder now under apps. And we can. So you can see those changes took place instantly. Now, if you have a preference to drive letters instead of what's called the Universal Naming Convention, in fact, let me show that to you. So if I go into that subfolder, this is the UNC, the Universal Naming Convention path of this folder, this shared folder. It's / name of the server or IP address / name of the share. And that's how you can get into it. But a lot of people prefer to have their drive letters, to have their folders mapped to a drive letter. I'm old school. I'm one of those people, although I'm kind of learning not to do it as I get older. So I always map my apps folder to the Z drive. So I'm on the virtual machine, the workstation connected to the Windows 11 server I created. I'm just going to right click on apps, and I have an option here to map network drive, and I'm going to map that to drive letter Z. So I just select my drive letter here from the download. You notice it fills in the Universal Naming Convention path for you automatically, and it's got reconnect at sign-in. So every time I restart this virtual machine, as long as that server is up, the Windows 11 server is up, it'll reconnect to it and map that drive letter. I'm going to do finish, and then bing, bang, boom. I now have drive letter Z mapped, and I even tells me how much space I have free on that server. I'm going to go do the same thing with media. I like to map that to drive letter M. Great. Drive letter M, that works. And for public, I like to map drive letter P. And again, I've got them all set to reconnect at sign-on. So now I have the M drive, the P drive, and the Z drive, and life is good. So there you go. The machine is built. Now I've got some plans for this machine. Just because we built it out of used parts doesn't mean we can't add to it later, right? And that's the beauty of repurposing things you may have laying around your home lab. If I've got an old motherboard from back when and a donated processor, and I've had RAM laying around, but we might want to add more RAM to this thing. I'm certain I want to add a larger boot SSD to this system because I need some place to store virtual machines as we add more VMs to this unit to do more of the things that we want it to do. So, but that's the beauty of something like this, the ultimate DIY NAS, because you control the components that go into it, you control the software that goes onto it, and pretty much, the sky is the limit. We're also going to do another video on installing Embion here and Plex or Jellyfin, if that's more suited to you, and I'm going to show you how simple it can be and how trivial it can be. Also, you can use this server to rip your DVDs. If you put a DVD player in here or a Blu-ray player in here, you could rip DVDs with it or Blu-rays to your own media collection. So again, there's all kinds of neat things we're going to be able to do with this NAS, and I've just covered a few of them here in this video. So anyway, we hope you found the video entertaining and informative as always. Please give a thumbs up down below if you liked the video. Leave your comments down in the comments section. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click that notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Please don't forget to come back and see us again real soon. And don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.
I've been watching old Unky Joe. From Texas heat to where the cacti grow. Fixing server, solar power in the land. Hoping that his plans all stand. Making life a touch more bright. underneath those southern lights.